Section 37 of Revelations of a Wife. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Mary Rhodey. Revelations of a Wife by Adele Garrison. Chapter 37. A Change in Lillian Underwood. Well, children, have you made any plans for Dickie's birthday yet? I nearly fell off my chair in astonishment at the friendliness in my mother-in-law's tones. She had been sulky ever since we had come home from our autumn outing in the Catskills, a sulkiness caused by her resentment of what she chose to consider the indiscreet interest taken in me by Robert Gordon, the mysterious millionaire whom I had discovered to be an old friend of my parents'. I shrewdly suspected, however, that her continued resentment was more because Dickie chose to take my part in the matter against her, than because of any real feeling toward Mr. Gordon. Nearly a year's experience, however, had taught me how best to manage my mother-in-law. When she indulged herself in one of her frequent tantrums, I adopted a carefully courteous, scrupulously formal attitude toward her, and dismissed her from my mind. Thus I saved myself much worry and irritation, and deprived her of the pleasure of a quarrel, something which I knew she would be glad to bring on sometimes for the sheer pleasure of combat. Her question was so sudden, her cordiality so surprising, that I could frame no answer. Instead, I looked helplessly at Dickie. To tell the truth, I rather distrusted this sudden amiability. From past experiences, I knew that when Mother Graham made a sudden change from sulkiness to cheerfulness, she had some scheme under way. Dickie's answer was prompt. "That's entirely up to Madge, Mother," he said, and smiled at me. Although his mother tried hard, she could not keep the acerbity out of her tones as she turned to me. She always resented any deference of Dickie to my opinion. "Well, as Richard has no opinion of his own, what are your plans, Margaret?" "Why, I have made none so far," I stammered, wishing with all my heart that I had made some definite plan for Dickie's birthday. I could see from my mother-in-law's manner that she had some cherished scheme in mind, and my prophetic soul told me that it would be something which I would not particularly like. "Good," she returned. "Then I shall not be interfering with any plan of yours. I have already written to Elizabeth asking them to come out here for a week's visit. This is an awful shack, of course, but it is the country, and the children will enjoy the woods and brooks and fields, even if it is cold." Dickie turned to her abruptly, his brow stormy, his eyes flashing. "Mother, do you mean to say that you have already written to Elizabeth without first consulting Madge as to whether it would be convenient?" I trod heavily on his toes under the table in the vain hope that I would be able to stop him from saying the words which I knew would inflame his mother's temper. Failing in that, I hastened to throw a sentence or two of my own into the breach in the desire to prevent further hostilities. "Dickie, stop talking nonsense," I said sharply. "I am sure Mother Graham," turning to my mother-in-law, who sat regarding her son with the most traditional of stony stares, "we shall be delighted to have your daughter and her family. You must tell me how many there are, so we can arrange for beds and plenty of bedding. This is a rather draughty house, you know." "I am better aware of that than you are," she returned, ungraciously making no response to my proffer of hospitality. Then she turned her attention to Dickie. "Richard," she said sternly, "I have never been compelled to consult anybody yet before inviting guests to my home, whether it be a permanent or a temporary one. I am too old to begin. I do not notice that you or Margaret take the trouble to consult me before inviting your friends here." Dickie opened his mouth to reply, but I effectually stopped him by a swift kick which I think found a mark, for he jumped perceptibly and flashed me a wrathful look. I knew that he was thinking of the strenuous objection his mother had made to our entertaining the Underwoods, and to the proposed visit of Robert Gordon to our home. But I knew also that it was no time to rake up old scores. I foresaw trouble enough in this proposed visit of my relatives-in-law, whom I had never seen, without having things complicated by a row between Dicky and his mother. There was trouble, too, in all the house cleaning, the rearrangement of our rooms, and in the laying in of a stock of provisions to meet the requirements of the menu for each meal that Mother Graham insisted upon deciding in advance to please her daughter and the children. And then, the day they were to arrive, she received a special delivery letter calmly announcing that they were not coming. But my annoyance was forgotten in Mother Graham's very apparent and utter disappointment. When I broke the news to Dicky, he suggested that we have a party anyway, and Mother Graham sweetly acquiesced in our plans to invite the Underwoods. Lillian's voice over the telephone, however, made me forget all my contentment, and filled me with misgiving. It was tense, totally unlike her usual bluff, hearty tones, and with an undercurrent in it that spelled tragedy. "What is the trouble, Lillian?" I asked as soon as I had heard her greeting. "I know something is the matter by your voice." "Yes, there is," she replied, "but nothing of which I can speak over the phone. Tell me, are you going to have any strangers there tomorrow?" How like Lillian the bluff, honest speech was. Almost any other woman would have hypocritically assured me that nothing was the matter, but not Lillian Underwood. "Nobody but the Durkees," I assured her. "They have already promised to be here. But Lillian, you surely must get here as soon as you can. I shall be so worried until I see you. If you don't get here early tomorrow morning I shall come in after you." "You couldn't keep me away, you blessed child, if you are going to have no strangers there," Lillian returned. "I don't mind the Durkees, but I need you, my dear, very much. Now, I must tell you something. Don't be shocked or surprised when you see me, for I shall be somewhat changed in appearance. Run along to Dicky now. I'll be with you sometime tomorrow forenoon. Good bye." I almost forgot to hang up the telephone receiver in my bewilderment. What trouble could have come to Lillian that she needed me? She was the last person in the world to need anyone, I thought. She, whose sterling good sense and unfailing good nature had helped me so many times. And what change in her appearance did she mean when she cautioned me against being shocked and surprised at seeing her? My anxiety concerning Lillian stayed with me all through the evening. I awoke in the night from troubled dreams of her to equally troubled thoughts concerning her, and my concern was complicated by a message which Dicky received the next forenoon. We had barely finished breakfast when the telephone rang and Dicky answered. "Hello," I heard him say. "Yes, this is Graham. Oh, Mr. Gordon, how do you do?" My heart skipped a beat. "Why, that's awfully kind of you," Dicky was saying, "but we couldn't possibly accept because we have guests coming ourselves. We expect to have a regular old-fashioned country dinner here at home. But why do you not come out to us? Oh, no, you wouldn't disturb any plans at all. They've been thoroughly upset already. We had planned to have my sister and her family, 6 in all, spend this holiday with us, but yesterday we found they could not come. So we're inviting what friends we can find who are not otherwise engaged to help us eat up the turkey. You will be more than welcome if you will join us. All right, then. Do you know about trains? Yes, any taxi driver can tell you where we are. Goodbye." I did not dare to look at my mother-in-law as Dicky came toward us after answering Robert Gordon's telephone message. I think Dicky was a trifle afraid also of his mother's verdict, for his attitude was elaborately apologetic as he explained his invitation to me. "Your friend Gordon has just gotten in from one of those mysterious voyages of his to parts unknown," he said. "He was delayed in reaching the city, only got in last night, too late to telephone us. Seems he had some cherished scheme of having us his guests at a blowout. Wouldn't mind going if we hadn't asked these people here, for they say his little dinners are something to dream about. They're so unique.